Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and today we have an upgrade to open. I know I say this every time, but it doesn't seem 5 minutes ago since I opened the last one. So let's take a look inside, shall we? This month's featured artist is Louisa Herudinova, and she has done a gorgeous pencil picture here, so I'm gonna go with it's a pencil-y kind of box. And of course, I was right. I'm obviously doing the voiceover in hindsight here, but we'll go along with it, shall we? We have 4 Viking pencils, and they are in 2H, 2B, 4B and 8B, and these are lovely graphite pencils. We also have a Sakura Sumo Grip in 0.5, and I'm going to assume that the lead in there is a HB. We have a Laufer electrical eraser, which I have got one of these by Derwent, but hey, I don't mind having another. And it's a battery operated eraser, and it kind of twizzles the eraser around for you so you're not there scratching at your page. They're actually very good. We have a Sakura Jelly Roll in white, size 05. We have a Mobius and a Rupert pencil sharpener, which kind of works as a pencil cap as well. It's very handy dandy. And the surface we have to work on is a Artspace sketchbook in A5. There are also a few additional items that are in the box. I have an Artline Candy Crystal solid highlighter, an Upcrate synthetic brush, and an Artspace one in the size 0. These were very kindly added because they did include batteries for everyone within the EU, but due to postage laws and international parcels, etc., you're not allowed to send batteries, so they kindly put in some additional items for everyone else, which I think's cool. But I also think it's very cool that they were going to provide batteries in the first place, so nice work there, Upcrate. The pencil's pretty much swatched out like you would expect pencils to, as you can see on screen, and the highlighter reminded me of a Faber-Castell Gelato. Unfortunately, I had a bit of trouble getting the Sakura white pen to work. They kind of don't get on very well with graphite in my experience, so I don't end up using that in this one's box, but I will put it with my others and it will get used. And the eraser was brilliant, and I actually do use that quite a lot, not just to undo a multitude of art sins on the page, but I actually do use it to create textures and values, which you will see throughout the video. And one last mention, that pencil sharpener is a good one. I'm pretty impressed with all the sharpeners I've had with Upcrate, and this one is no exception. But anyway, let's crack on, shall we? The month battle topic is Colourless Beauty. Now, yeah, I guess that kind of fits the scheme. It is graphite and we have white paper, and it's going to be a very monochromatic piece. Just lately, me and my husband have been sitting down and watching the Sherlock Holmes with Basil Rathbone in there. There's something quite wonderful about watching really old black and white films, and I quite like Sherlock Holmes. I'm not a super fan or anything, but I'll sit down and watch one, and the Basil Rathbone ones have been brilliant. And black and white films are quite beautiful as well, so today's subject is going to be Sherlock Holmes portrayed by Basil Rathbone. I just grabbed an image off Google. If you type Basil Rathbone in there, you'll find it, and I went with that. And luckily for me, the majority of them are in black and white, so all of my tonal values are worked out for me. Now, I had to do something that I don't normally do when I draw, and that was to be very gentle on the paper. I'm normally very heavy-handed when it comes to dry media, well, any medium actually, but it kind of shows up more with dry medium, so I had to be very delicate with this to start off with. I very lightly sketched out where I wanted the facial features to go and mapped out where the hands and the objects in front were interacting. I do tend to find that working with negative space works really well, and when I say negative space, the best example I can come up with here is if you look where his hand is against his face and his shoulder that little bit in between where there's not very much is your negative space. And sometimes when we draw portraits, we kind of have a imagined version or a romanticised version of how we think it should look because we are hardwired to look for perfection. Whereas sometimes we can perhaps skip by reality a little bit, so checking out that negative space can just help to assist with making sure your proportions and your composition's right. Now, this isn't a massively detailed sketch. I only spent a couple of hours on this because I wanted to get this video up and out for you guys. So in a way, I guess I'm not being too up on the realism here, but for a sketch, I'm giving you the best advice I can. It's actually kind of making me really miss going to life drawing classes at the moment. We're still in lockdown in the UK and it's eventually all going to get lifted, but in the meantime it's time I am not doing life drawing. So I will probably use this box later on in a life drawing class, so I won't be doing a Beyond the Box this month, and I didn't last month for the same reasons. I think these would be more suitable for life drawing. So another handy dandy thing, and of course if this applies to any of you guys and what additional items you got in place of batteries, I thought it would be really useful to use the paintbrush to actually smudge the graphite around on the page. And two very good reasons why. Number one, sometimes your hands are going to have natural oils on them and that's going to slightly affect your paper, short term and long term. It's going to make the graphite behave differently and it's not going to provide a very consistent smudge. And that's okay if that's what you want, but I wanted it a bit smoother for the majority of places. Secondly, using a brush instead is going to lift off any of those loose particles as well, so you're not really going to transfer them as easily to anything else, and you can just tip the paper on the side and tap the rest off. It also causes those little dust particles to settle into the page a little better, whereas your finger's quite smooth and it's only going to push on the surface it touches, the brush is going to get into all them little fibres of the paper. So I'm really glad that I got those bonus items, but I'm pretty sure you could use any soft paintbrush to do that. In all, I actually really enjoyed this box. I think it was really good value as well, especially for the electronic eraser. The pencils were really nice to work in. I'm actually enjoying working in pencils a lot in my spare time at the moment. I'll be honest, I have got a lot of pencils from subscription boxes over the years. But I did find these very nice to work with. They had almost a creamy lead texture to them, but it didn't feel horrible and gunky and full of clay. It was very nice and they were very smooth on that paper. The paper itself, I haven't really got any other information. I'm going to say it feels like a drawing paper and probably about 200 GSM. But if anyone knows, maybe I've missed it in the book or something, please let me know in the comments below. And of course that applies to you too, Upcrate, if you are watching. Very much would appreciate any additional information. Anyway, I'm at the stage now where I'm starting to add in some additional details, and one of the good things I noticed about this eraser was you could actually change the eraser size. There was a little attachment and there were two other sizes in there, so I'm using the smallest to get those details in. I did find, because it was quite a chunky device, I had to just be really careful as I went along, and different degrees of pressure also creates different levels of erasiness. Shall we call it erasiness? I found it really good to add the shining details on the glassware on the front of the picture, as well as adding highlights, especially around Basil's brow where his fingers are smushing into his forehead. I actually found this much better for bringing those highlights out than perhaps using the pen, even though it didn't really work on the graphite for me. If I'd had a Posca instead, I actually don't think that would have been right and it would have stood out a little bit too much. The 8B pencil was absolutely gorgeous to add all of those darker tones, and like I say, I'm very heavy-handed with my pressure, but I didn't feel like I needed to press quite as hard with this to get a good colour payoff or graphite payoff. And for me personally as well, making sure your leads are sharp, even if you're going over large areas, is very important. So having a good pencil sharpener was fabulous. I've really enjoyed this box. I know I've already mentioned it before, but I actually thought this was quite a fun box to have, and I think I'll get some more use out of it off YouTube and just generally in my arty stuff. But here is the finished piece, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, and if you've enjoyed it, a thumbs up goes a long way. In the meantime, I'll see you on the next one. Bye!